There's nothing at the North Pole, you have been deceived. This is a real map of the North Pole. When we look into today's world map, you'll see that there's nothing at the North Pole. And yet they are lying. I did some research on Google, whether there is or nothing over there. Let's go into the book of Enoch that was removed from the Bible, Enoch chapter 26 verses 1 to 2. And from there I went to the middle of the earth, and saw a blessed, well-watered place, which had branches which remained alive, and sprouted, from a tree which had been cut down. And there I saw a holy mountain, and under the mountain to the east of it there was water, and it flowed towards the south. So, Enoch went to the center of the earth, what we call the North Pole. It also explains where the tree of life used to be located. Jubilees 8 verse 19. He knew that the Garden of Eden is the Holy of Holies, and is the residence of the Lord, that Mount Sinai is in the middle of the desert, and that Mount Zion is in the middle of the navel of the earth. This is a wind finder at the North Pole. You can see as it appears something huge. I also did some research that the North Pole is Rupus Nigra. In some traditional cosmologies, particularly in Hindu and Buddhist traditions, Mount Meru is described as the central mountain of the universe, located at the North Pole. There is surveillance all along the border of that north area, and they say it's to know if people are coming across. It's called the dew line.
Above the Arctic Circle comes the first film report of a 3,000-mile radar warning network across the top of the world, the distant early warning line, the dew line. In camps like this, from Baffin Bay across the continent to the Bering Sea, 5,000 men are working. With steam-assisted pile drivers, they are forging an electronic chain to give North America 6 hours of warning of enemy attack. Roads are going where roads never went. Prefabricated buildings are being brought in on huge snow tractors. Nearly 300,000 tons of materials have been delivered over the snow, parachuted, shipped through ice-choked seas. Temperatures here sink to 50 below, and the buildings must stand 150-mile-an-hour winds. Scores of bases like these will be built in 2 more years, the $400 million dew line at the top of the world.
Nuclear World War III will begin the day Israel is striked. That is the beginning of World War III. There are times coming. What's going to happen in the world has not happened in the history of mankind, from Adam to the great flood till whatever generations have gone by. 1/3 of the population will perish because of World War III nuclear warheads. The other 2/3 that will remain, they would wish they never were born. The whole land will melt, and the people with it. It will be the most disastrous times ever for humanity to go through. After World War III, not everybody's going to die. Not everybody's going to die. But nuclear weapons will be used. Every superpower nation will press the button. They will send rockets at each other.
Trump wins in a week, and I think he will, I don't see how they're going to
You think of all that material coming off of it. There's nothing left to it. This is the Verizon building, and we're going to go look on the ground right below there to see where the stuff should have landed. We get big chunks here coming down. What is all that material trailing off of it? I wonder why there's no thud. And this is at full speed, and then you see that chunk coming down. This turned to dust. So let's go down and look on the ground right below there where that stuff would have landed. And this was in front of everyone, but they were told collapse, so that's what they saw. Here's that Verizon building, and right there is where that stuff should have landed, in that intersection. There's paper and aluminum cladding. The steel structure had aluminum cladding covering it, and that is just a few pieces is all that's left. Why is the paper not burned? And notice the body language. This guy has his hands on his hips, arms folded, hands at the side. You can imagine their jaws probably hanging. They just come out of their hiding places to find the building's gone. Big 110-story building, and you're seeing sunshine. There's some more dustification we're going to look at of a particular part of the building. Remember where the folks were in stairwell B? I think this is the upper part of that. There were some very robust, beefy beams, columns, and I think that it's interesting that they took a little bit longer to go away. There's viewing angle from here, just various directions. The car park, it's that image over here is looking at it this way, but we'll look here, and then across the river. From the north, watch this column here. Watch it faint. Just faints into dust. Now this peels like a banana. And you see immediately you have clear air around it. My detractors often say, well, the thing fell over and it had dust settle on it, and the dust fell off, and it's so fine it hangs in the air. Well, how could dust settle on it instantly? It hangs and you see it frothing up into dust. But this sequence here is really creepy. It starts off very crisp outline, and then pretty soon it's hazy. If this thing fell over, and the folks who say that the dust was so fine it hung in the air, how did it settle to begin with? Or you have another problem, coarse dust settled on it and became fine dust? Whatever way you look at it, there's a problem. Even if you have this is 700 feet tall. If you have a 700 foot deep hole in the ground and drop that thing down, it wouldn't do this. If it fell over, it'd take out a few city blocks worth of buildings. You'd see it on the ground. It's not there. It turns to dust in front of you. A view from the northeast. See how crisp it is. Poof. It's another word I like to use, poof. Describes. And we'll look again at a close-up of this. See how it's very crisp around the edges. Also, how do you get dust landing on a vertical column? I think that was right above where those guys survived. You can almost see the wires hanging out of what's left. Then it turns to dust. Here's something else. But see, there's some columns there, and then they go missing as it comes. This is closer to the ground. And you will also see over here where dust is shooting out of the ends of those beams, or the columns, and it's starting to look like tissue paper. There was very little of that material that reached the ground.
Нихуя себе, это что такое? О, нихуя метеорит, блядь.
Внимание,
Ебануться. Нихуя себе.
Я сейчас подойду, подожди. Нихуя себе.
Ебать, а! Что это хуйня? Никит, что это такое? Бомбардировка, нахуй! Артподготовка, блядь!
То, что ему отказали в рукопожатии, видно, его мало смутило. А вот Морф неопределенно озадачил. УТВ победил. Как источник информации, Морф оказывается мало интересен. Он может
The eyes of the world today stunned by this image. This was debris from a meteor racing toward Earth, streaking across the sky there, crashing into the ground in those woods. And look at some of the other images emerging tonight. The cloudy trail the meteor produced, and on impact, this, carving a little pool into a frozen lake. It's the biggest meteor in more than a century to hit the planet. This one crashed in Russia. 1,000 people were injured from shards of flying glass and debris. Tonight here, we have learned there was no warning. More on that from NASA in just a moment here, but we begin with ABC's Kirat Radia in Moscow.
It came out of nowhere, a bright speck in the sky, soon streaking across the horizon, followed by an almost apocalyptic scene, a blinding flash of light, and then all hell broke loose. Dizzying explosions shattering windows, knocking these office workers to the ground. These students were lucky, protected by curtains from the flying glass, and these men barely escaped the blast. In the streets, pandemonium. Terrified residents thought the world was ending. People started to panic. Somebody screamed, "The end of the earth," he says. The chaos of the meteor was captured on cell phones and on dashboard cameras of cars, so popular here in Russia. The blast was so powerful it knocked down a wall at this factory. In all, over 1,200 people were injured, mostly from broken glass. 3,000 buildings damaged, over 1 million square feet of glass shattered. Many were injured after going to the window to check out the flash in the sky. The glass shattered and bounced back on me. My beard was cut open, this man says. The meteor was believed to be about 50 feet wide, weighing a whopping 7,700 tons. That's about the same as the Eiffel Tower. It raced towards Earth at over 40,000 miles per hour. As it crashed into the atmosphere, it began to break into pieces, causing those booms and sending those powerful shockwaves towards the ground, rocking a zone stretching hundreds of miles away. Those shockwaves causing all of the damage. As for the pieces of the meteor, one of the bigger chunks landing here, leaving that massive hole in the frozen lake. Tonight, about 20,000 Russian troops are headed to the affected area. They'll be helping those residents who are struggling without windows. Temperatures are expected to drop well below zero overnight. Meanwhile, Russian television coverage has been going wall to wall with what some commentators said looked like a scene out of an action movie. David?
Kirit Radia leading us off from Moscow tonight. Kirit, thank you. And this, of course, comes just as last night here we told you about the asteroid barreling toward Earth. That was something completely different, not to be confused with this meteor. Today, the asteroid was in fact streaming toward Earth, and as predicted, it missed us this afternoon by about 17,000 miles, but that was still pretty close. And so tonight, we wanted to bring in Amy Meinzer, an astrophysicist. She joins us from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory there in California. Amy, thanks for being here. And when we saw those images out of Russia today, we all wondered, could this happen here?
It's possible that such an event could happen again. This was actually the largest fireball that we've seen in a long time, since about 1908. But there could be others that happen that we just don't see because they happen over the ocean or over someplace that's not populated.
This image caught our eye, too. Look at this. This is the Earth here. All of those dots are space debris up there. 21,000 pieces orbiting the Earth. That's a lot of stuff not too far away.
Yeah, that's right. So there is a lot of space junk out there, and we're working really hard to track it and you know, keep showing where it's going to go and what's going to happen to it. In most cases, though, these bits of space debris will, you know, kind of fall down and they'll be just burned up in the Earth's atmosphere. So most of the time, they're completely harmless to us.
So most of the time, harmless. But we knew that asteroid was barreling toward Earth. You predicted that it would miss us.
Yeah.
But correct me if I'm wrong, there was no warning in Russia about this meteor that suddenly blinded all those drivers there on the road. So what are we to think of that?
Yeah, that's right. The object that came into Russia about a day ago, that was about maybe a third the size of the asteroid that passed us by. It's pretty small, actually, as these things go. It was about 15 meters across. That's about the size of 2 parked vans end to end. And because it was so small, it would have been very faint and very hard for astronomers to see from the ground.
We know you all have your eyes trained on these particles 24 hours a day, so please thank the team for us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.